Recently, I realized something that honestly disturbed me, and I had to stop and ask myself a question. Why isn't the smartest person in the room the one making the most money? Isn't that how it's supposed to work? Isn't that what we were taught in school? That if you're intelligent enough, if you work hard enough, you'll eventually become successful and wealthy? But when you look at real life, something doesn't add up. You start to notice that some people who aren't necessarily the smartest are actually making a lot of money. And after thinking deeply about this, I began to understand why this happens. And that's exactly what we're going to break down in this video. Because in theory, intelligence should give you an advantage. But in reality, something interesting often happens. Sometimes the smartest people struggle to move forward, while others with far less knowledge keep taking action and progressing. Now, this doesn't mean intelligent people don't succeed, they do. But there's a certain thinking pattern that many smart people fall into, and that pattern can actually slow them down. Just to clarify, this isn't directly about smart people, and I'm not saying that intelligent people can't make money. What I'm really talking about is a thinking pattern that many smart people tend to have, a pattern that people who think less deeply often don't struggle with as much, and that difference shows up in how they approach risk, decisions, and action. Here's the core of it. Smart people tend to think deeply. They analyze possibilities. They consider outcomes. They calculate risks. And this ability is incredibly valuable. It helps them avoid unnecessary mistakes and stress. But sometimes, without even realizing it, it creates a hidden problem. Overthinking. Because when the mind keeps analyzing every possible scenario, it becomes harder to actually take action. Meanwhile, someone who doesn't overanalyze everything might just try. They take the risk. They make the move. They learn on the go. And that simple difference between thinking and acting often determines real-world results, especially when it comes to money. Before you leave, stay with me, because this goes deeper than you think. And if you're new here, this channel is all about real conversations around money, not just theory, but practical ways to move forward. So let's keep going. Like I said earlier, smart people tend to analyze everything. They think about every possibility, every outcome, every potential problem. And while that sounds like an advantage, it can quietly become a disadvantage. Because the more possibilities you see, the more you begin to hesitate. You start second-guessing every move. You begin to overthink. And before you know it, you're stuck, thinking instead of acting. Most people want their plans to be perfect, and smart people are especially prone to this. They don't want mistakes. They don't want anything to go wrong, so they keep refining, adjusting, overanalyzing, until perfection becomes the goal. But let me be honest with you. The real world doesn't reward perfect plans. It rewards experimentation. It rewards people who try, people who take action quickly, learn from it, and adjust. Because those are the people who actually discover what works. And more importantly, what doesn't. While someone else is still thinking about the idea, they're already learning from real experience. And that difference between thinking and doing is what often creates real results. Many successful entrepreneurs didn't start with perfect knowledge. They started with simple ideas and tested them. Sometimes those ideas failed, but each attempt created experience. Experience leads to insight, and insight leads to better decisions. Someone who tries 10 ideas may discover one that works, but someone who only analyzes ideas may never test even one. This is why action is powerful. It turns uncertainty into information. From personal experience, I remember a time I had a business idea. I wanted to create and sell a course, but I knew I had to learn more first because you can't teach what you don't understand. And instead of starting, I started thinking. I kept thinking about everything that could go wrong, and that thinking kept me stuck. I never took action. I stayed in my head, analyzing possibilities that hadn't even happened yet. And that's a dangerous place to be, because the more you think without acting, the harder it becomes to start. Now, I like to believe I'm a smart person, but if I'm being honest, sitting there overthinking and doing nothing, that was a really dumb move, because at the end of the day, intelligence means nothing without action. Another reason some people succeed financially faster is their tolerance for risk. Many intelligent people are very aware of potential consequences. They calculate what could go wrong, and because they see those risks clearly, they often become cautious. But people who worry less about risk may move forward faster. They try new ventures. They invest in opportunities. They pursue ideas others hesitate to explore. Of course, risk can lead to failure, but it can also lead to growth, and growth requires stepping into uncertainty. Confidence also plays a very big role in all these. Sometimes people with less knowledge feel more confident because they don't fully understand how difficult something might be. They simply believe they can figure it out. This is sometimes called the Dunning-Kruger effect. When someone has limited knowledge, they may overestimate their ability. But surprisingly, that confidence can sometimes push them to take action. Meanwhile, someone with more knowledge may see how complicated the problem truly is, and that awareness creates hesitation. Confidence pushes one person forward. Doubt slows the other down. So ask yourself this: are you confident, or are you constantly doubting yourself? Because if you're honest, chances are you're doubting yourself. And most of the time, that doubt doesn't come from reality. It comes from thinking too much before taking action. The longer you stay in your head, analyzing everything, the more your mind starts creating reasons why you shouldn't start. And before you even take the first step, you've already convinced yourself that it won't work. So what I would advise everyone is to learn from practice, because that's the best way to learn something. When you feel like you're not perfect yet, you should understand that you can only get to that point through action. This means you should start messy. The learning process happens much faster through action than through theory alone, because someone who starts early and experiments often can accumulate years of practical knowledge, even if they weren't the smartest person in the beginning. So that's a good way to move forward if you want to get things accomplished, because no successful business today started 100% perfect. They all started messy. Even my channel started really messy. I am still developing, and to be honest, it still looks messy sometimes, but every day I learn something new. If you have a business you are trying to get started with, this is your sign to start regardless. So the real lesson isn't that dumb people make more money. The real lesson is that action often beats overthinking. The person who experiments, learns, and adapts will usually move further than the person who waits for certainty. Intelligence becomes powerful when it is paired with courage. Thank you so much for watching.